Hey guys, welcome back. Today is Sunday and it's actually the warmest day so far here in Michigan. It's supposed to get up to about 50 degrees today, so I have gone ahead and opened up my cold frame. And for those of you again who haven't seen how we constructed the cold frame, take a look at that video. And I noticed that it's quite warm. It's already, the snow's melted, everything's looking good in here and it's quite warm. My soil temperature is right around 45-50 degrees, so it's catching up there pretty quick. But the beauty of the cold frame is the dirt is already workable. So I'm going to start planting in this cold frame to hopefully kickstart my spring planting. And today we're going to be planting a couple of root vegetables and some greens. I've got butterhead lettuce, spinach, and romaine going in. So what I've done is I've gone ahead to the Old Farmer's Almanac and constructed my garden plan. So I know exactly how far apart and to space everything in the garden as well as what is going in the garden itself. So this is what I'm looking at today right here in my cold frame. So let me go ahead and get started with that. So if you notice in the cold frame, I have some dried leaves already in here. So when the leaves fell, I threw a good chunk of them in the cold frame. That also helps protect the moisture content in the soil, and I also just want that good nutrients and that mulch blocker, so that'll help block some of the weeds, but we do need to pull them back to plant. So I've been doing that kind of in stages. I kind of keep a good chunk of them in the middle here just because I don't plant right underneath here just for the shade. So if I have real small seeds, I want to be able to pull these back so that they have some room to grow. So I may actually take a few of these out just to give us some space to work in. And then I'm going to make my rows and get started. So I have two different types of radishes that I'll be planting for them. And I'm going to do a couple different rows of them, so 2 rows of each. So first I've got Pink Beauty, and then I've got a Cherry Belle. So the first ones I'll actually be planting are just a 1 row of each, and then in about another week I'll come back and plant the second row of each, just so that I have a crop continuously growing. Radish don't take very long to come up, so they're pretty easy to plant. And I put these guys right in the ground. It's kind of nice that it's actually cold out because they taste a little bit better in my opinion when they've had a little bit of a cold. Now I plant these about every 2 inches apart. And you can go on a little farther apart. That's just how I've done it. And then you just want to lightly cover up that radish. So now all I've done was draw a line in the soil with my trowel. Put that back in there. And you can use string to create more of a perfect line, or other types of rulers or yardsticks to create a perfect line. I just like to get in there and get my hands dirty a bit. What we're planting is some spinach. And then again, just taking a nice trowel. This one I do want about 4 inches apart. just to recap, I have planted the 2 different types of radish, the spinach, some butterhead lettuce, and I'm going to go ahead and start planting our romaine. Now just to recap, the radish, I have 4 rows planned in my garden, but I only planted 2 rows of radish right now because I'm going to do a succession plan, which means I'll plant the second row of each type of these at another time. So I'm going to plant that second row in about a week and a half once the first ones start to come up. And that'll give me 2 crops of the same plant, because then I won't need 40 radishes all at once, but it'll be nice to have a second crop coming in as the first one's being harvested. So now the romaine lettuce, as you can see here, I started downstairs in soil blocks. Now that was just to give it a little head start, but the thing you need to think about with this is that you do want to harden them off, which means that you take them out of your heat mat, you take them out of the fluorescent lights, and you put them in the sunlight for a couple hours each day, and you expand that hours each day as you're getting closer to putting them outside. So maybe the first day you only give them 3 hours, and then you put them back on your heat mat or depending on the type of plant they are, and in the fluorescent light, and then you bring them out 5 hours, and then 7 hours, and then surely enough it's out for 8 hours a day. So let's go ahead and plant these guys. So now the last thing that I planted in the cold frame were some turnips. Now this is also key to thinking about and planning about your cold frame or your garden, thinking about where the sun is going to hit and if things are going to be shaded. So I know that the turnips are going to take a little bit longer to come up compared to the lettuce or the radish. However, when it does come up, it produces huge leaves. So I don't want that in the front producing huge leaves and then shadowing anything in the back that might need that sunlight. So think about how you're going to produce these things, when you're going to harvest them, and how big they get when they are full grown. So radish will come up and be harvested before the black-seeded lettuce is in full bloom, or the turnips are in full bloom as well. So keep that in mind when you're planting your garden or when you are planting your cold frame out as well. So as you can tell, the cold frame is facing the south, and that's a good thing depending on where the sun is going to be. It's always going to be covering this cold frame as well. So something to keep in mind as well as where your sun hits your garden. The next thing I wanted to show you guys was some of the onions that I overwintered. Now I'm not going to disturb these guys right now, but I did want to show you how you can do this. Now in the fall, I planted a late crop of onions that did not get to full maturity by the end of the fall and came frost. So what I did was I covered them with a good blanket of leaves, and then I put a frost cover on them, and it seems to be doing the trick. They don't seem to be harmed, they don't seem to be disturbed, and they seem to be doing really well so far. So when the snow melts, I should have a good crop of onions coming in already in the spring without having to do much work right now. Thanks again for joining us today on the channel. If you haven't checked out the Old Farmer's Almanac Garden Planner, take a look at that. It really is great for month-by-month gardening, especially if you're doing succession planting or if you are doing 2 different season crops or even 4 season crops like I am. It really helps you dial into how far apart each plant needs to be spaced. And you can also do some custom planting in there as well. And thank you for checking out the cold frame video. If you haven't already, go ahead and take a look at that. It's a great tool to utilize, like I've said before. We use it all year round. And if you are interested in doing that late fall planting like I did with the onions, you can also check out how to do that with the carrots, and we can do a video on that. We did some fall planting of our carrots and pulled them up in February. We had a huge crop pulled up in February, and it was so nice to actually have good plants right out of the garden, good crops right out of the garden being eaten in the middle of the winter. So thanks again for checking out the video. As always, please like and subscribe, and leave us a comment if you have any questions or if you have any concerns with your own garden. and hashtag home and garden on Instagram so we can check out your garden. And follow us along on Instagram at Amber's Home and Harvest.